Today I am celebrating Star Wars, and as you can see, I am overjoyed to participate in the celebration of something which I grew to love throughout my lifetime. You know, even in recent years I've been to see Star Wars movies that I absolutely adored, that for me really captured the spirit of what I remember from those first films. Now, I was too young to see Star Wars when it first came out. I remember seeing The Return of the Jedi when I was on holiday with my parents in Wales, and it was a rainy day, and we went into the cinema, and oh my goodness, I was absolutely enthralled. I then went back and saw the Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and for me those films remain the better ones of those series. Then the next ones, like what was 4, 5, 6, I really didn't enjoy that much, all of that Jar Jar Binks stuff. And then finally, it was those last 3 major films in the last trilogy that I thought kind of really got back to that earlier spirit. And yet I know that there's still a lot of criticism of those Star Wars films, but beyond the detail of individual films that you like or don't like, because I'm sure there's lots of people that disagree with all of this, and what I think most people who have any kind of affection for the Star Wars films will be able to agree upon is this incredible spiritual mythology that was somehow embedded into this science fiction film that everybody was able to connect with. The idea of the Force. There's been such rebellion against the idea of God in the last few hundred years since Descartes started talking about rationality and reason, and it's like we intelligent people have been seen to distance themselves from the idea of the superstitions of religion, and here this story brought spirituality back into people's lives just by rebranding God as the Force, something that you could feel, something that you could tap into, that could be used for good or for ill. And that's actually one of the stories that's kind of left out of a lot of religious narratives, because it's just seen that you align yourself with God and only good things come out of you. But then we only have to look at something like the church, look at the evils committed by Christian churches and probably many, many other churches, but I'm just thinking at the moment of the witch hammer that ended up in the brutal murder of thousands of, if tens of thousands, is it not hundreds of thousands of women through a period of more than a century, because of the church going after what they considered witches. It's been so appalling, the evil that has been perpetrated by people that claim to be a man of the cloth. And what I love about that Star Wars story, you've got this figure, Darth Vader and the Emperor, who were themselves Jedi, that were in tune with the Force, but fell into the grips of the dark side and were turned for evil, turned towards evil. And that's one of the stories that often gets left out of the commonly known religious mythologies. So it's beautiful to see that really embraced. And I suppose the idea of learning to close your eyes and follow your intuition, follow your feelings, these are valuable things that you don't get taught at school. Nobody talks about that kind of stuff. And so George Lucas, having been inspired by Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, the story of 1,000 faces, is it the book that he wrote? But incredible mythologists, their work being condensed into this beautiful act of fiction that, using technology and bright lights and big explosions, managed to transmit a story of meaning and purpose to young people around the world for generations. The genius of Star Wars just is so remarkable, and it's due to the combined genius of so many people that worked on the production of those films. From the genius of the people that are making the sound effects for things like R2-D2 and C-3PO, the genius of the people making those incredible models, so that in the 1970s, before we had computers to render these incredible graphics, they were doing these brilliant visuals just through physical models that were created. The genius of the sound stages and the direction and the actors, it's an incredible story. And now it's funny, because since the story has started to get broken up, there's also genius coming about there. Like there was one of those spin-offs that I believe was created on one person's laptop. This director, who was clearly a very deep science fiction and Star Wars fan, managing to do justice to the story using his own laptop. I don't know, maybe that story was like amplified for media success, but it's a story of genius from beginning to end. And so therefore today I am joining in the celebrations of Star Wars Day.